Well, folks, you saw the title. Did we survive the Acolyte this week? Yes, we did, because, well, I'm not a zombie. But what we watched, well, let's talk about that. So I'm your host, Jeff Hicks. You know me from this YouTube channel and many other things. And joining me tonight, all the way over here, say hello to Andy Andrew.
What's going on, Jeff? What's going on, chat? I am still recovering. I'm healthy, actually. Again, just I was coughing out a lung and basically every other organ in my body last week, and I'm still trying to recover my voice this week.
Yeah, I'm like ready for a break. You know how you go on for a while and you're like, man, the 4th of July or this vacation day is going to be awesome. I am ready to sleep because YouTube has been tiring me out. So, folks, we are not going to have a low energy stream. It's just going to be a different kind of stream. Now, we're going to be joined by Script Doctor in a minute. We're going to be talking about the Acolyte and a whole lot more. But before we do, hit that thumbs up button to let YouTube know that you enjoyed this content. And do us a favor, share it. We're growing. We just passed 197,000 on our way to 200K. And let's get these stream numbers up, the rookie numbers, folks. We want to get 4, 5, 10,000 people in here. Let's make that happen.
You know what number we also need to get up? Wokebusters.
We do. Today's
everybody in the chat. Go back, Wokebusters.
Yeah, folks, the countdown is on. It keeps ticking away. Ooh, it went up again. So it started today at 31% funded. We're almost at 35% funded. Now, I know that seems like a small jump, but this has been a very, very good day for the book.
For a single day, that's actually a great jump.
Yeah. Now, folks, I will be putting out more information. I found, and I've been asking a lot of people what's up, and a lot of people find that the concept might be a little too vague. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to produce this video that I've been talking about, but I'll put it out after the 4th of July, so it'll actually reach a lot of people, and then we'll be talking about a lot more of that as the countdown goes on. I'm not as concerned as you'd think because I believe it's going to work. I know it's going to happen. It gets picking up as time ticks down. So, folks, go to WokebustersComic.com, or you just go to Kickstarter and type in Wokebusters. It's the only thing that's there. And check out the newest graphic novel written and drawn by me. It's a lot of fun, and well, it's a good value. It's $25 for 100 pages of story plus bonus content. In today's world, your dollar's got to be stretched very far. Well, with Wokebusters, you got a lot of value for that. Thank you to Taylor Swift, Greater Than Disney, Star Wars, and Doctor Who, sharing the link all over. Now, before we start, let's say hey to some of our audience, like Sith Astromech, who didn't know this was a live show. We also have James Unchained. Thank you. The camera is looking good tonight. Hello to Clone Geek. Hello to Robot Shlomo, Father O'Malley, who's a member of the channel. We also have Shrubble.
You roboted. Did we lose
okay.
Jeff? Oh, there you are.
I'm back. Okay, cool. Thank you
roboted
to everybody
for a second there.
You know, I feel like at some point Disney's just going to try to get my ISP to kick me off.
That might be it.
I don't doubt that. But folks, the camera is working better. We got the technical glitch fixed. Let's hope we don't have any more moving forward. Dion did not die watching the Acolyte. Hello to you, Adama. Yeah, somebody asked about the emotional attachment. I'm watching this show for you guys. This is a channel thing because you guys want to hear about the show without watching the show. So, yeah, there's no emotion to Star Wars anymore. But I'll tell you what I did after the show was over tonight. I did pop on the last 7 to 8 minutes of Star Wars so I could at least have the strength to talk about something. And that's not an exaggeration. Anytime I sit through Disney Star Wars, I usually watch the end of the first one and go, all right, this is what I like. This is what I care about. This is why people feel the way they feel about this stuff. Because it used to be up here, and now it's down here where this bottle of water is. Didn't realize I had an extra. So, real quick, Andrew, before we get into the Acolyte talk, Sir Georgian has a very generous super chat that says, in regards to episode 406, your query about Sonic's longevity is because of furries. The fandom is weird. One is how Archie Comics has lost a ton of Sonic IP to one guy over legal paperwork snafu, and what he did with them after that, not safe for work.
So that's not the answer to the longevity of the franchise. The answer to the longevity of the franchise is just that it has fun characters. The games are fun. There have been some pretty bad ones, though. And it has some of the strongest out of original media. So like outside media. So like obviously Sonic started with the games, but it also had comic books, had movies. It's got the animations. It's got all these other things. And for the most part, by and large, those have all been very well received. So it actually has very, like, unless you're going on like Reddit, Tumblr, or DeviantArt, that's like that's not the bulk of the Sonic fandom. Like those are the freaks and the weirdos and the rejects. We don't talk about those. But yeah, there was the legal issue with Archie Comics because of Ken Penders, who had created a bunch of the characters. He helped create a lot of the lore in that comic book universe. He's a bit of a shithead, and then yeah, Sega eventually pulled the licensing from them, and IDW got the bid for him. And for all of IDW's faults, their comic for Sonic was actually pretty solid for a while. I haven't read it in a couple of years, but it was decent.
I would have read whatever was out in the early 90s, but I've always thought of the Sonic fan base, Sjorgen, as a little off, because I do think of the Chris Chans of the world, not gonna lie. Also, too, I read a paper, and this isn't like my opinion, but I did read a paper about the appeal of Sonic the Hedgehog in children with autism, and I thought it was a very fascinating read. I don't know where how they decided to start that topic, but it was an interesting read. So you guys can Google it and check it out for yourself. I also read it years ago, so I couldn't tell you verbatim what it was, but I've heard that from multiple sources now, too. But to Georgian, thank you very much for that. Folks, go back and listen to last week's episode real quick. Quick plug for the episode. It's 5.5 hours long, and you're thinking, I don't have 5.5 hours. You do for this. This week, we did a marked safe from the election because we really didn't want to talk politics. What do we have to add to the conversation? Look, I live in this country. It affects me. I have an opinion and a voice and all that stuff. But also, you guys found us to talk about entertainment and take you away from the real world. Times are hard. Shit's crazy. You need escapism. You can escape the WCBS to have fun. We're not going to beat you over the head with rhetoric or politics or any of that stuff. As long as you're excellent to each other, that's all I care what you believe. But this past Thursday, the show, I wanted it to end. But I have a rule of thumb. It's that if the number goes up, I will not end the show. And so I started talking about really absurd and weird things. It started off by me kind of testing the waters with, I think I was talking about being an immortal. And then being an immortal turned into cloning Bond girls and having a harem of Kelly LeBrock clones and traveling through time and destroying the universe. Folks, it got weird. It got kind of sexy. It was a lot of fun. We were talking about muscle mommies and stuff, all kinds of shit. You got to watch the episode.
You were just all over the place, weren't you? Holy hell.
But that was the appeal of that was the intent. I kept trying to make it weirder and weirder. And check this out, dude. So we had a guest host because Kendo was out of town. And he has like horror masks and all this stuff. And as a joke, he pulled out this Jason Voorhees mask just to show it off. And I started to interview him as Jason Voorhees. So, folks, if you want to watch me interview Jason Voorhees,
nice.
It was nuts. It was a great time. And I know sometimes people go, oh, man, that's a huge time crunch, 5.5 hours. Put it on the way to work. Listen to it on your last day before the 4th of July and laugh all the way to freedom. Have some fun. Clone Geek says, Thursday's episode made me realize how insane Nick can make a conversation. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. I think we got I don't know if that's a real account or a troll.
I saw it.
Nick can make anything interesting, folks. Shrubbles08 says, thank you, Jeff and Wolf, forever watching the Acolyte. I need a ludicrous speed and a lame Star Wars button. I got bad news. We've been struck twice with copy hits for ludicrous speed in the last week. It's gone. I'm sorry.
You know what?
Guys.
I bet it's only because they announced that they're doing the sequel.
Yeah, it is. But folks, if you want some Spaceballs content, we have a Spaceballs video that's moving quite well up on YouTube, so check that out. And I'm going to be doing better to get more of our stuff out on Rumble. I've noticed a big uptick in YouTube, and that's the one place I've been focusing, but let's get Rumble up there too. So if you want more bonus content over there, let me know.
If you also have a hankering for some Star Wars parody content, you should buy a copy of Stealing Solo.
You should, folks. Let me tell you this. Wokebusters is kind of slow. You'd think I'd be bummed out, but Stealing Solo has sold so much over the last few weeks. Through Sam personally, I'm like, okay, people like that book. They like me. They like this. We only have 6 boxes left, and there are 64 Fandom Menace 4-packs left, and that's it. When I started the website last year, there was a basement full of this shit. Now it's almost gone. So act now. I won't be bringing this back anytime soon. I will do a sequel. and another sequel, and then those 2 books will have to be out and fully done and funded, and then I will eventually do a collected edition with all 3 stories. But that's like 5 years away. So if you want this, get it quick. Same with Wokebusters, because no matter what happens, it'll get be a very small print run, and that's it. So folks, check it out. Strubble the Way, thank you for having your sweet stealing solo. I'm glad you like it. If you ever come hang out at a con, bring it. I'll sign it for you. I'll get the other guys to sign it too. There's only 1 or 2 fans that have stealing solos signed by every one of the WCBS guys. And now if we can get Harrison Ford to sign it, then I think we'd be good.
That would be the ultimate signature edition onto that.
I would. Okay, right before I left California, there was like a private signing for Harrison Ford, but it was like $800. And I was moving, and I didn't have an extra $800, but I was this close to sending in Stealing Solo as my one autographed thing. That is, because here's the thing: you'd either get it back with a Harrison Ford autograph, or you'd get this weird letter from a lawyer. And either way, it made it to Harrison Ford, and that's all I care about. Folks, it is time to talk about the Acolyte now that we have our friend and final co-host for the evening, Script Doctor. What is up, my friend?
Not much. Twitter just didn't give me the alert that you sent the link, so that's why I'm late. I was doing a couple of refreshes, but no worries. Happy to be here because hey, nothing happened.
Well, great minds think alike, evidently. So, because that's exactly what both Jeff and I said.
I took 4 pages of notes, and it equated to an episode that went nowhere. Now, folks, we understand that a lot of people like last week's episode with the lightsaber duel. What did we say? That lightsaber fight was cool. The episode, This week, we have a follow-up where technically more events happen. You jumped from planet to planet, unknown planet to Kofar to Coruscant to outer space and back again. There was a lightsaber whip. Things happen, but when we say nothing happened, we talk about in the grand scheme of things.
The plot didn't really move forward much.
I got to ask you guys, where can the plot go with this show? They have, by the way, I didn't forget your buttons. I'll press them in just a second. But where can this go? You know, what do? You got the flipped, you got the mystery, I guess, out there, but like there's no more surprises. There's one thing left. What did Saul do 16 years ago? Once that's answered,
that's really it. Yeah.
You're debating that question for 2 episodes. It's like, I don't care at this point.
Yeah, at this point, you've given me no reason to care.
Yeah. I mean, they really are laying it on thick that Vernestra was either the trainer of Khmer or knew him before he became whatever it is he became.
Is that the green lady?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the
Leslie Headland's wife.
Who really cannot act.
No, she can't act to save her life.
I was wondering, guys, was she just trying to be Spock? Because I call her Green Spock on my videos. I swear she just watched old Star Trek episodes and was just trying to be Leonard Nimoy.
Well, I mean,
that's insulting to Leonard Nimoy.
Well, since the prequel trilogy, a lot of people that have been working in Star Wars, whether it's the EU or even in the Clone Wars cartoon, especially, they conflate being logical with being stoic, and they don't quite get the same. So some characters are coming across, they're supposed to be stoic, but they just come way too logical, too Vulcan-y. And it's weird because Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda had personalities while also being wise and stoic, and they were our model Jedi. And you'd think, oh, there's your framework to ape for other Jedi characters. No, it's like, nope, we're going to make them more monk-like. We're going to make them more logical, less distance from their emotions, those types of things, so that they can actually show how Anakin is really fragile as a Jedi, and that's how he was so easily able to fall to the dark side, where all other Jedi were not, because they had their humanity or whatever species that you want to equate with it weeded out of them, so that they're just Jedi and not anything else. And I'm like, yeah, good in theory, bad in practice, kind of boring. And guess what? Now we're seeing bad writers take that to the 10th degree, and then we'll see another generation of even worse writers take that to another.
Well, yeah, you're seeing bad writers, and you're seeing the result of a combination of bad writers and bad actors, and I guess directors would have something to do with that as well, because a good director will pull out of an actor what they are really looking for, and they're conflating. I don't think it's even necessarily just stoicism on its own being a bad thing, but they're conflating the what was presented in the prequels in terms of what the Jedi were supposed to traditionally be like, and that's, yes, this kind of monkish thing, but they're conflating that with them having zero personality.
Exactly.
The Jedi in the prequels still had differentiating personalities between each other. They were not one-to-one on each of them. However, you can see that idea of them being more monkish and not super emotional, right? You can see that being taken by people who can't act, can't write, and therefore just say, "Oh, well, then this is perfect for me. I don't have to write a personality, or I don't have to act a personality." And then you just get cardboard, and that's what we're getting here with virtually all of these characters, with the sole exception of Soul, really. And even him, it's like, okay, so like he has a personality compared to the rest in this show,
Yeah,
but
guilt.
that's not really saying much.
He has a
No.
guilt-ridden personality right now. And I will say, I'm still impressed with the actor who learned English to do this role. He probably also had a translator to help him make sure that the performance he was giving for the words he was saying was in sync.
Mhm.
Because again, learning a language in a and like within 2 years is really hard to do, and also nail it, especially a complex one like English, where our synonyms and homonyms really do mess with people. But yeah, this was really just padding. I mean, the one thing that when the idea of the shorter season was pitched is like, yeah, you'll never have a filler episode. Well, then okay, great. And here we are with filler episodes on an
yeah.
8-episode season. It's like you
Well,
really just don't know how to get to the point, do you?
This episode felt like an extended, like whatever it was, 30 minutes and change version of teasing the question, which is, as Jeff said, really the only question that remains in the show. What was it that Soul did like 16 years ago? Like that's what this entire episode really felt like. It was like, we're gonna tease and we're gonna pull this thread for as long as we can. Well, there really isn't much thread left. Like,
No.
just
Well,
get to the
thread
point,
is
get
still
over
out
it.
there.
Right, I guess. But at this point, like that, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, Script, because I was telling Jeff before we started the show that really, like, everything about this show for the most part has been pretty predictable. You predicted who the freaking Sith was going to be from jump. Right now, it's looking like what the obvious direction for them to go is, not necessarily to be a good direction, but the obvious one that it seems like they're painting is that now Osha's going to be on the bad side and that May is going to be on the good side.
Yeah, wait. Do you mean Sith? No, yes. No, I predict that Kimir was the Sith after
Yes.
he walked away to get water for 10 minutes. Before that, I thought it was going to be one of the two moms. But
Was it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I guess both Jeff and I misremembered that then, because I
Yeah,
think
'cause
we
I
both
could've
thought
sworn
that
you
you
said
had
on the
called
first-
Kimir was going to be.
I could have sworn you said that in the very first episode. You're like, I think the apothecary guy is the Sith. Like, I'm not going to go back and listen. But
There's always a reach for it because, again, I'm looking at it from two perspectives. Okay, what would be the most cleverest thing to do? Well, obviously, one of the mothers being the bad guy would be the case. But, oh, no, wait, we got Leslie Headland. We have a female ideologically driven aspect of Disney, Star Wars. Women cannot be the villains. That's the rule. But they really can't be, with the one exception of what's her name, who is the subordinate to Thrawn in Ahsoka.
Oh, yeah.
But
Night Witch,
that-
or Night Sister.
Yeah, but that has more to do with, I think, Dave Filoni's a little bit more egalitarian in that regard compared to Leslie Headland at this point. And it's like, okay, I don't believe that a woman's going to be the bad guy, but what we're probably going to, but like the way that the direction seems to be going here is like, oh, look at that. We get to see a Sith bathe. I don't care.
Dude,
We
yeah,
don't get
what
to
was
see-
that scene was as pointless as having Osha walk in on Yord shirtless. So no, it wasn't even Osha. It was his freaking Padawan, the little girl walking in on him shirtless.
I think any scene where they follow a Jedi, because a Jedi can sense your energy, it's like, why is she that dumb? And I don't want to, try to pick everything apart, but clearly you don't need to write anything where if a character can sense you, you can't sneak up on them. That's just not possible. So,
and clearly he's stronger in the Force than most of the characters we've seen in the show. So of course he can sense she's there. There was zero surprise to that scene at all.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even play around with the idea. And this was something that was kind of alluded to around the prequels, is that Palpatine was able to hide his connection to the Force from the Jedi face to face, even with Yoda. Like that's one of their tricks. And it's like, well, let's see that more of that, please, because you don't have a whole lot of that in visual Star Wars canon, essentially. But no, we don't. Instead, what we get is a really like an old throwback to the old Jedi Knight games. Cortosis, that's the helmet I made out of. That disrupts and screws around with lightsabers. Yeah, great. You did some research. Wonderful. Is that all we're getting out of this episode? It's like
no, that's not all we're getting. What we got out of this episode was Osha putting that helmet on and then breathing like Darth Vader. Very deliberately. Like you could not pay me to believe that was not 100% intentional.
Well, I mean, even the island that they're on the unknown planet, they're doing a lot to make that look a lot like Act 2 from Last Jedi.
I literally wrote that in my show notes. I was like, is this the Last Jedi planet? I couldn't remember the name.
It's Act 2 because it's like Act 2 because Ryan Johnson is punny. I will say this. Okay, the only good writing aspect is they're like, great, Saul did not communicate that he encountered a Sith to the Jedi Council. They also basically said, okay, transmission errors. Okay, that's convoluted, but whatever. At least they're saying, okay, we're not.
He's also deliberately shutting down comms as well. That's them. Yeah,
like
goes back to what I was saying earlier about them trying to like stretch out this plot thread mystery of like, oh, what did Saul actually do?
What we see here is they're trying to contain this conspiracy, this secret from the rest of the Jedi. I'm like, okay, a little bit hypocritical of what the Jedi are supposed to be, but I'm willing to give benefit of the doubt as a writer. It's like, okay, maybe there's something else going on here where it's like, okay, is he really a Sith or is he just like a fallen Jedi who's claiming that because of ego and whatnot? Do investigations, have fun with it. Don't always take at face value what your bad guy says to you because they're the bad guy. They're supposed to manipulate and try and coerce you. So, okay, fine. Let's entertain that just on a surface level right now. But it's going to have a contrived ending. I will say this: the $180 million is clearly going to be saved for like the final 2 or last episode, because these sets are not very elaborate. They're clearly repurposed from some other productions that have been fully destroyed since their use, and you're not getting at it. I mean, this episode was pretty self-indulgently directed. Lots of slow shots and camera movements and weird pacing. And why we keep seeing those weird like snuffleupagus creatures all over the island.
It's Snuffy. That's what his name was, right? It was Snuffy.
That's where he's from.
Snuffleupagus from Sesame Street.
Sesame Street, it's all part of the universe now, Star Wars. I mean, Yoda, Miss Piggy. Yeah, I get it. The one thing that you keep bringing up with these, like, the little cutesy creatures, it just felt like porgs. That's why I thought of Octu the whole time. I was just like, oh, great, more of this.
I didn't even think about the porgs.
They start out ugly, and then they go into a chrysalis form, and then they come out like porgs. That's how it is.
That's the new lore.
I mean, I will say this. I like the idea of the Sith using an argument saying like, oh, if you don't use your force powers, that weakens you. Like, oh, is that what the Jedi tell you? Well, I got some secrets for you. I'm like, that's some not bad stuff. That's good type of seduction of, the innocence. Like, oh, you think the Jedi are telling you everything? Well, I'll tell you what I know.
Yeah, sure. And I'll give you that. But
the
character direction itself. Empty. Sorry, go ahead.
It just feels empty because it's coming in too little too late.
I think a combination of that. I think you're right on that point, but also just like the delivery. He just was talking so nonchalantly. There's no imposing, no gravitas, no nothing to this character. He just seems like, I don't know.
He's trying to be harmless deliberately to open up the fact that he's on the defensive where she's on the aggressive. It's a classic. This is an old manipulation tactic that you can actually see in spy
stories. But we haven't seen anything from him outside of when he was cutting down those Jedi that suggests that he acts any other way.
No, that's the point. Like, we're getting stages. It's weird because it's like, okay, he's very, very violent. Well, I saw you kill those people. Yeah, you did. And it's all about the misdirect. And I'm not defending it. I'm just saying it's like, it feels like they want to have a direction for it, but they don't have it, because every single instance we have seen of Khmer has not been consistent. He's the apothecary that's kind of bumbling. Now he's the Sith, and now he's this harmless guy that seems to know more and a former Jedi. okay, so what's next? What's the next part? It's almost like Leslie Headland saw The Dark Knight and was like, yeah, Joker has a new story for how he got his scars every
Right,
time.
he
Let's
tells
play
the
around with
story
that.
differently for each scene. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't work because you haven't given it a through line. Like, where's the
Mhm.
consistency here other than it's that character? It's like you have to give a little bit of bleed over for what's going on between the introduction to the end to show that there is literally a core character that is having fun with these personas they're presenting to
Yeah, we
each other
get no
character that they're
arc for this
interacting with.
character. There's nothing to latch on
Well, I
to
mean,
be
I think it's going to be
semi-interesting.
backloaded. I think the whole story is going to be backloaded with a ton of exposition that's not going to really justify the weight. It's just, I mean, and one of my criticisms of Christopher Nolan is that he front loads his movies with all this exposition. And you're like, okay, I know what's going in there, but it was really boring to get there. Now you can kind of sit back and enjoy the ride to a degree. And in this
Yeah,
case
with at
here,
least
it's
some
like,
decent cinematography.
it's
and
completely
stuff.
inverted. It's like, okay, clearly you're building up to some sort of crazy thing. And the only resolution you can have is that everyone dies except for either May, Osha, or Khmer.
Mhm.
Because you can't have any Jedi left alive to report back to the council and be like, yep, someone was killed with a lightsaber, probably a fallen Jedi. We're not going to go to that Sith territory yet because, again, from our perspective, there hasn't been a Sith ever since. They're only known in legend and they don't exist anymore. Nobody teaches those ways of the Force either. So there's no way they could be coming back. And you have to kind of sell that idea at the end, and that's going to be really hard for them to do in a convincing way. And the other part too is like you just know, you can feel with some of the references that they're pulling in that if Khmer's not going to be, Darth Sidious or Darth Plagueis or anything, he is going to be in some way connected to that character. There's clearly setting up there, and if they don't, I would actually give them props because man, it's a very tempting thing to do. The timeline is kind of orbiting around the area where it could be plausible, and at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's an easy rut to get your show to stand out enough to get people talking about it positively or negatively, most likely negatively, because that's the state of Disney Star Wars. But you get that conversation, and that conversation equals engagement. That engagement equals positivity within the Disney core, which means that even though I don't think there's going to be a second season, they're definitely have some things that they're going to put in these last 2 episodes. They have to try and ensure that people want to come back for a second, whether they get one or not. Because again, you got to swing for the fences when you're writing.
I'm surprised how much goodwill last week's lightsaber duel got them, because I've seen so many people talk about how they want season 2 based on that, and I just kind of rolled my eyes and
If you
sighed
look
a
at
little bit.
lightsaber duels, go watch the Star Wars fan films. That's all they really are.
Yeah, watch the fan films or just watch the lightsaber duels in the prequels, and that's all you need. Or like if you're a stickler for nostalgia, go watch freaking Luke versus Vader in Jedi. Like I would rather rewatch that about 50 times in a row before I raise my hand to say yes, I want a second season of The Acolyte just based off of that one duel. It wasn't even really a duel either. He was just cutting everybody down.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. It was brutal, but I kind of just am surprised with how little really impresses people. They just want that basic, it was violent, it was this, it was cool. It's like, yeah, okay. But everything else surrounding was bad. I don't really think there's a purpose to any more of this show. The High Republic era, we've seen enough of it. It's kind of like episode 1, but less. It's more boring than episode 1. It's got less than this. Why don't we go ahead? Why can't we go past The Mandalorian, past whatever, 50 years into the future? Like, where's Ahsoka's how many years removed from Star Wars? Or is it concurrent with The Mandalorian, right?
It's concurrent with, it's parallel to The Mandalorian. She's also like only 10 years younger than Anakin, I think, right? Something like around that. And so she's kind of like the oldest living Star Wars character from the Old Republic era, still around. That's from the Jedi point. Listen, I'm happy to go. I think there are Star Wars stories that can be told without the Skywalker family, and I think that should be done. And I think we had a potential with that with the first episode of The Mandalorian, and then they squashed that as with subsequent episodes. And the moment you start shrinking your galaxies, the moment it starts getting boring, and it's just a curse. I mean, listen, I understand it. We look at stories the way we look at our actual time, linearly. You think, okay, we told the story here, let's go into the future. Well, I mean, you can, but again, Lucasfilm Lucasfilm, LucasArts, and their publications decided, hey, we can also go backwards and still be the same engaging, fun stories with the Knights of the Old Republic, with everything that they did, the Darth Bane series, all those types of stuff. It's like, yeah, there's still stories you can tell that don't actually have to orbit the Skywalker family, and they are well revered. That case is still a possibility. The question being is like, well, who are you going to get them to write it? Are you going to get really great storytellers who, even if they don't know Star Wars, will do the research and fall in love with the franchise? Or are you just going to get people who are essentially activists pretending to be writers, which guess what? They're only getting work at Disney nowadays. Like, they're not getting work anywhere else. Not that I've seen. So it all comes down to the fact that this is technically Disney's property now. They can do with it whatever they want, which is tragic because Disney is basically of Mice and Men, the Lenny with the rabbit, petting it and petting it, saying it loves it, and then just doing more damage than it's aware of or whether it's cognizant of. And all we can do here is look at the horrifying aftermath and wonder, where's that guy with the gun to
I was gonna say, so who's gonna shoot Disney and get them out of here?
Yeah. I'll do it. No, all joking aside,
I volunteer as tribute.
We kind of covered everything already. Like,
it was such a nothing episode.
It was. I will give them this. I'm glad that Soul remained like the one semi-intelligent character in the series, and he more or less quickly figured out that it was May and not Osha. And I'm like, oh, well, we don't have necessarily a direct explanation of how he figured it out, but I'm just glad he did, because we talked about this last week where it's like, he spent how many years training Osha? How would he not be able to sense like a difference in the Force and in the presence that's 6.5 inches away from him right now?
Where'd you get that white spirally tattoo on your forehead since the last time you saw
that would be kind of the obvious bit. But I think what they will, if they end up explaining it directly at all, which at this point I don't even know if they will, there was that moment where May is telling Soul something to the effect of, our emotions will cloud our judgment and we'll see what we want to see, or something like that. And in my mind, and this might be me, this is probably me giving the writers too much credit, I'm like, oh, well, Soul really wanted Osha to still be alive. This is not Osha. And if he took 2 seconds to think about and to sense her presence in the Force, he would know immediately this is not Osha. But he was so wrapped up in his emotions, because I think that's something that they're playing on in this series as well, that Soul is maybe a little more in tune with his emotions than your average Jedi at this time. And he's trying to kind of push back against it here and there, but we've seen a bit of that give, right? And I think that will be the moment that maybe woke him up, and he was like, oh, wait a second. Is something off here? Yeah, something is off here. That's not Osha.
Either that, or the writing team is so committed to the identical twin aspect that even their Force auras are identical, regardless of their physical intent.
God,
I mean,
that wouldn't surprise me at all.
That
shoot me in the face twice.
I've read scripts that have stuff far worse, unfortunately, but that's kind of what you see with novice writers that haven't read a lot of screenplays, haven't read a lot of books, like classic literature, haven't read, haven't actually seen other films, especially ones of spies and subterfuge and coercion and manipulation, betrayal, that aren't soap opera-y or Harlequin romance-esque, or just straightforward Pride and Prejudice. Maybe the most duplicitous story they've encountered was The Importance of Being Earnest, which is a comedy that is kind of dry for my liking personally, but it's kind of valuable to read and see. It's listen, it's really sad because all they're doing is hurting the gender perspective of female writers, because I know some female writers that are really, really good, and only two of them that are actually funny. And it's basically going to put this stigma, and Paul Chado just did a very comical video the other day, how women should no longer be working in Star Wars. And it's like, well, yeah, a whole batch of bad apples spoils the orchard at this point. You know?
Yeah.
And
Bryce
that's
Dallas
kind of-
Howard did have a solid episode that she directed in what was it, the first season of Mandalorian?
technically, yeah, first season of Mandalorian, and then she directed an awesome episode in the first season of Boba Fett, which was a Mandalorian episode.
Yeah, like one of the two worthwhile episodes in that entire show.
Yes, and it's like, well, Bryce Dallas Howard is someone who learned from her dad and all the other people that she worked with. Was surrounded by a group of people that was able to transfer some amazing skill sets to even the point where she's able to come up with her own style. And even some of the stuff she's done on TV is pretty good. The actress whose name is escaping me right now, but she played Lorraine Bates in Back to the Future. Leah Thompson. She's a really good television director. I mean, if you've watched more conventional network TV and a couple of streaming shows outside of Disney's side, you will see her name pop up as being the director of these episodes, and they're really quite competent. She actually directed a bunch of the Stargirl episodes, which Stargirl itself, not a great show, but some great performances from Luke Wilson and Sarah Polley in those episodes that were directed by her. Well shot. Looks like everything was kind of like in line with the tone of what they were trying to do in that show.
She's married to a fairly well-known director, so Howard Deutsch. So I mean, maybe that kind of carries over too.
Well, it's probably just a common interest thing, kind of like how Richard Donner was a really great director, but he's also a pretty clever producer. And then when he met Laura Schuler, he's like, "This is the best producer I've ever worked with." It's like, I'm marrying her, and then he did. And she's still a really good producer, even though, again, she's been in Hollywood most of her life. She definitely would preach some of the activist stuff on the surface. But when you take a look at some things that she's produced recently, it's kind of, she keeps all that stuff kind of at arm's length, because again, a producer's first job is to make money, and it seems that's what she's trying to do.
Well, I mean, if you're a learner, if you're a teachable person, and you surround yourself, or happen to be blessed to be, just by happenstance or birth, surrounded by people who are immensely talented, like in the case of Bryce Dallas Howard, father was Ron Howard, solid actor, great director, if you have a learning mindset, an open mindset to learn, you're going to pick stuff up, and that's going to rub off on you. That's why I prefer to, and people can take this in a million different ways, and certain ones more often than others, but I don't like being the smartest person in the room, because if I'm the smartest person in the room, then there's nothing to learn.
Most likely,
if I'm not the smartest, and obviously there are some exceptions there, right? And everybody's still going to have, maybe on net, you're the smartest person in the room, but there's still stuff you don't know. I'm speaking in general terms, obviously. I like to have people that I can glean things from, whatever that is. Maybe it's something that, maybe it's writing craft, maybe it's artistic perspective, whatever that, maybe it's something within STEM, who knows, maybe it's science stuff, right? But I still like being able to glean, maybe it's business, whatever it is, I like to be able to do that. And I think anybody worth their salt, if they go into a situation with that mindset, if they're fortunate enough to be surrounded by people that are like masters of their craft, you're going to inevitably, to varying degrees, but inevitably pick up something. And I think that's valuable. And I think it's dangerous. Sorry,
that's
go
what you
ahead.
have to do. Sorry, I thought you were done there. But to your point, it's like everywhere you go, whether you're the smartest person in the room or not, the whole idea is that as long as you're trying to learn something, even from people that are from a different walk of life, you have that's the best way to stay into a room. Because listen, I've been in rooms in Hollywood where I've been the biggest moron in there, and I've also been in rooms where I've been the smartest person in there. And in both cases, it's like, you know what, I'm just going to sit back and listen and see what I can learn from this, because you never know. And if they acknowledge that I'm the smartest person in the room, then we're in trouble, because I've tipped my hand, and that's what I don't want to do. Like, it's just, the word genius in Hollywood is thrown around way too much. And it's like, your bar for genius is basically the bar you're trying to get the audiences to just accept the fact that because it's not woke, it's good. It's like, no, that is not helpful to anyone here. Stop throwing that around. Oliver Stone is not a genius. He's just on crack, and he's got an eye for film.
But
Okay.
Platoon, man.
Well, I mean, he's still traumatized from his time in Vietnam. Don't blame him for that. But he's Ridley Scott, not a genius, but he's really good at doing what he does. I mean, he's made a lot of mistakes, but at the same time, he also kind of surprises you because he likes to swing for the fences with what he does. Tony Scott was the genius. Ridley was the auteur.
I enjoy Tony Scott's work more than I do Ridley Scott. I know, controversial, but I like fun movies. Not everything needs to be stupid. It can be more thought provoking or deeper. But I like Top Gun. I like Beverly Hills Cop 2. I like why am I drawing a blank on Tony Scott movies? Last Boy Scout. That movie's great. Yep. Nobody talks about that one. Like we talk about Lethal Weapon. We talk about some other Shane Black films, but we don't really talk about Last Boy Scout. It's a good movie.
Fair enough. I have not seen it.
Yeah, well, Shane Black has been hit or miss, but he knows how to. One of the things that he's very good at is finding a voice in his characters, and that's what I really like. I mean, even when I saw,
well, that's how you get an audience invested, right?
It's your first step, absolutely. The next part is like, okay, how do you hold on to them?
Right? Yeah, you want to maintain, that's for sure, but you need that hook, and people latch on to people.
Yeah,
right.
And then, if you want to talk about that generation of filmmakers, you got Francis Ford Coppola, who is pretty much known for The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, and now Megalopolis, which that's going to be something when it gets a wider release, if it does. As brilliant of a director he is, it's like, well, can you name off the hand any of the other stuff he's done? It's really difficult.
Honestly, I am trying to go. Wait,
yeah, without Googling it, it's kind of hard. It's like, yeah, that's just because as great as those filmmakers are that came out of the late 70s and the 80s, overall, I mean, they've earned their spot in history 100%. But at the same time, they're not perfect. And it's like what we've got right now is we have a bunch of people who probably could have that moment, but the system in place that we have today is pushing them into areas where they're not best suited. And we're getting a lack of authorship with our filmmakers. We're getting a lot of derivatives with our shows at a higher frequency because the output has been so great. And there's also a lot of fear. Like, where's the marketing team out there? I mean, you've got the Deadpool and Wolverine marketing, which is doing pretty well. You've also got just this last 48 hours, the marketing for Beverly Hills Cop Axel F on the internet has been amazing. Like,
I've been loving it.
I actually haven't seen any of it.
Oh, dude, it's.
Did you watch Shaxel Foley yet? Script?
No, I have not.
It literally is just a commercial of Shaq in the Axel Foley jacket, and they're doing takes of the movie.
I've seen the toy commercial.
Oh, it's so good.
I saw the toy commercial with Shaq playing with Axel Foley toys. That's what I saw earlier today. Which I thought that was
damn
great
things
too.
coming out.
They're not real toys, sadly.
I know. I want a real one.
You could hear it in Jeff's voice. He wanted to give them money for that so badly.
I want to buy whatever they use on Netflix. Like, I want this. Oh, wait a second. I actually know what custom this is. This guy tried to sell me one of these on Instagram. Yeah, I was gonna buy it.
Just take him up on that.
It was like $300.
Does it look like it's worth $300?
It's a GI Joe.
So it's kind of small.
Yeah, a listener made me an awesome one up here that I keep in the case, so I'm good until we get to the real.
If I'm dropping $300 on a figure of any kind, that sucker is at least like 8 inches tall and hyper detailed.
That's Hot Toys prices for me. It needs to be a Hot Toys quality doll, and I get it. No disrespect to any independent toy maker or creator. You guys need to make your time is valuable. I'm an artist.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I do have a line at what is acceptable in price for me.
Yeah, that's not going to have mass market wide appeal to a lot of people.
I just don't know why Super 7 didn't. This was it. This was the one time. They should have made those Super 7 Axel Foleys. It'd have been just like this Marty McFly right here. You know, basic, whatever. And that would have been enough. You could have made 2. One in the jacket, one in the sweatshirt, and you'd have made a couple $1 million. But I guess Eddie Murphy's likeness is too expensive.
Not only that, I think oddly enough, the market might not technically be there according to the current research we have, which that could change after tonight.
All I'll say is they just announced Murder, She Wrote action figures last Saturday. If they can make Jessica Fletcher, fuck, why don't they make Fletch? They make other Chevy Chase figures. Just take the current one and put him in a Lakers jersey.
So we'll get Murder, She Wrote, then we'll get Andy Griffith's Matlock.
We got Golden Girls.
Oh yeah, we do.
They're Golden Girls action figures.
Yep. Golden Girls is huge, even to this day.
Golden Girl figures will do better than Acolyte figures. I know people online.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna set the bar at 0 sales. That's what we're doing.
No, there are people out there that are such diehard fans that they have these figures already, and they look so underwhelming, man. They're just like, I understand that if you really break it down, a lot of Star Wars figures are kind of underwhelming looking. It's what they represent that make them cool. Like, you know, you look at and I'm sorry to say it this way, but I got a dozen of them in this box. But if you look like a farm boy Luke, you know, if you're not having him do anything heroic, he's just kind of there. But what he represents from that movie, when you look at it, you're like, oh man, I can see him shooting on the fucking gantry at the stormtroopers, or swinging away, or looking out the sunset. What do you
to that point? Like, if the Acolyte was a banger of a series, shoot, I'd get a Soul Black Series figure, right? Because he's the only character worth half a damn. I don't care about anybody else. But the fact of the matter is, I don't care about the show on net, like, overall.
No.
So just like, I'm not gonna bother. I'm not gonna waste my time, waste my money. That $25 or whatever that I would spend on that Black Series, I could put that towards, like, I don't know, a Black Series that they do of the KOTOR characters or of the Cal Kestis game characters.
Those are already out.
Yeah, well, I have them all.
Hell yeah,
including a first edition, like, white box Black Series Cal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of the top 3 parts of my Star Wars figure collection. But why wouldn't I just, like, invest that $25 towards something worth my time that I actually like on net? Like, Soul's fine, but he's not an amazing character, and the show itself is just bad. So there's nothing there for me to just be invested in and be like, yeah, I'll give them some money for merch.
You know, I did go and buy Mandalorian stuff. I thought the Mandalorian was a cool
I have
character.
Mando in his full Beskar.
Same. And I got the first one where he's all brown and dirty, like the first armor. Then I bought the upgraded one. I have like Queel, and I have a couple other people.
I have Cad Bane. I have Cad Bane from that, but I sent it to my buddy because Cad Bane's like, it's his favorite bounty hunter in Star Wars, and it's also like just one of his favorite characters in general. So I was like, you can have it, man. I'm not attached to it.
I got 2 Gina Carano figures. I got the Hasbro Black Label, and I've got the one that's got the Kenner label on it, but that's not really a Kenner toy, right? It's just a
vintage style.
Yeah, the vintage ones will just keep the Kenner thing.
My girlfriend got me those when just before, or right around the time that Gina Carano was announced to no longer be working with Disney. And then the eBay,
and then the secondary market price just
apparently she got them right before that happened. So I'm like, oh, smart cookie there.
Shout out to all my toy collecting buddies who sent me the Cara Dune. Was it Articulated Chad that hooked me up? Somebody hooked me up with Cara Dune, the metallized one. So that was legit. But thank you, man. Now, folks, you know, they're really trying to create a cool character in this unnamed Sith. And, you know, I'll give 2 positives right now in tonight's episode, just to stay honest. Soul's acting was very good. Like, there's a scene where he kind of like cries in the ship or whatever, and I was like, all right, I get it that that's not what the Jedi would do, but I also think that version of the Jedi suck. This emotionless monk has never been cool to me, and so I still fight against it. So I like what they did. The dude's a good actor, like a very good actor. So you know, respect to that. And, you know, it's beyond just learning the English part. It's actually good, like his expressions and everything. So hopefully he does even more stuff. Like, back in the day, making it to a Star Wars project was like the be-all, end-all for a lot of these people. For him, it's just going to be a stepping stone to something far more digestible. Like Squid Game's great. I hope the season 2 opener is as strong as the first episode of season 1. I like that. And then the guy that plays Khmer, Jason Mendoza from the Good Place.
Good Place, which is a great show.
Great show, dude. The hook got me. Like at the end of the first season, I was like, "What?" And then I watched all the way through.
Oh, for the Good Place, I saw the first 2 seasons. How many did it go?
I think
It
4.
went 4 or 5.
I saw the first 2 seasons as they were airing, and I was really enjoying it. Like they had a good cast. I really liked Kristen Bell. So I was like, hey, I'm here for it, right? So I thought it was good. I just never got around to finishing it.
You know what's funny is that The Good Place uses elements from Doctor Who, and Doctor Who is great. It actually has fun with that type of stuff. And
especially like the
time.
What is it? The bureaucracy stuff, or the
bureaucracy stuff, and then they write out what time looks like, and it's this weird word that I can't remember how to pronounce, but it's funny. Ted Danson was fantastic in that.
Oh god, yeah. Oh.
And the only thing that bugged me about the show is that I think it was at the midway through the second episode, I'm like, I wonder if the joke is that this isn't The Good Place. And then we find out, it's like, oh, son of a...
Yep. And you called it.
I was like, ah.
Maybe you should just stop thinking when you watch TV show script and you'll enjoy them.
I'd be dead if I stopped thinking.
I think that it's a weird line to walk, I'm learning.
It's like you are... magician.
Well, and I don't like the phrase just turn your brain off and enjoy. I think that gets taken a little too far at times. I understand the intent behind that. Like, hey, just sit back and enjoy a popcorn flick, right? I'm not expecting, like, say if I'm watching the first Transformers or, a lot of Godzilla films.
Crank.
Which I'm a massive Godzilla fan. Like, I'm just going to sit back. I want a fun popcorn flick. I don't need a just insanely, existential questioning narrative or anything like that. Just give me something fun. It doesn't need to be completely devoid of intelligence. That's for sure. So I think there's a line there, but more so than that. And I think this is especially difficult for people like Script, Jeff, myself to a lesser degree, and others. If you are a writer and you're constantly thinking of stories and looking at stories through a writer's lens, that's where you all of a sudden start coming up with like all the different possibilities of where the show's going, the endings, predicting things. I think more so than your average viewer, that like even because even just average viewers, if they're not imbeciles, I think, and can critically think, they're going to be asking themselves questions, even if they're not conscious about it, right? They're like, well, what happens next? And that's what the most important question in fiction, right? It's like, well, what happens next? Like, and then what happened, right?
Well,
but I think writers will take it to another level.
So think of it this way. Tier 1 is the water cooler conversations, where you gather with your coworkers to talk about the episode they just watched on TV the next day. Writers have the same thing, but it's way beyond that. And it's usually out of just years of stuff. It's not just of writing itself, but it's also studying the craft and basically realizing that there's dozens of formulas of how to tell a story and tell it well. And there is overlap between all the formulas to various degrees, but they're not always set in stone. And the reason that we have these multiple formulas is that it keeps things fresh. So you can have like the standard hero's journey. You can also have like the lone wanderer, or you could have basically the what Spider-Man is, which is basically just oh crap, what was the phrase that was used? It was like the self-discovery hero. Like he has no mentor, he has no support, no systems. Everything he's doing is a self-discovery, and he makes either a lot of mistakes, but he also comes victorious at the end because he's learning from those mistakes in the moment as they're happening.
Well, he's leveraging what lessons he did learn from the mentors he had prior that are no longer in his life, that he lost, like Ben and things like that. And he's having to carry that through the vast majority of his life. Like most people, like most of us will have a guardian, a parental figure, or something like that for a decent portion of our lives, right? Whereas Peter lost Uncle Ben when he was still a teenager. So he
Well, not
lost
only
that
that, like he
father
lost
figure.
Uncle Ben literally on the cusp of his gaining the new power. So everything he's going off of is his memory.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the smarter things they did with Peter Parker is that they did not make him an unreliable narrator. So we take what the lessons that Ben taught him and the little bits that Aunt May provides
Mhm.
throughout his time with there as true, and that makes it work. Then there's also like the running theory of like, okay, what's the mentor's journey? Like, what's the story of the hero that has no mentor, that is being thrashed about by all the experiences around them to come, out of that situation and become a hero, and then understand what it means to pass on those lessons to the next generation. Those stories are really hard to nail as well, because you're basically, telling a story that's equivalent to Quest for Fire, where how much dialogue can you really do here? Where's the way that this guy is going to learn some skills without anyone around him? Because it goes back to like the normal speculation of human ingenuity. It's like, well, clearly, the first person to discover martial arts wasn't taught by someone. He had to figure it out in very painful ways, I imagine. And then from generation to generation, it becomes more and more refined.
I see you, Adama. I see you. I feel so bad. I still have not had time to pop one of these 4K discs into my Xbox One X and actually watch them on my 4K TV. I'm so sad about that. And I'm leaving for Denver Fan Expo on Thursday, so I'm not going to have any time to do it until next week at best.
I have good news. Those discs will be there. Unlike some shows on streaming that could magically disappear.
They
That's
will.
right.
I'm waiting. I'm counting down the days for them to announce the Western 4K release of Godzilla -1 as well, so I can add that to the collection.
You can always get the Japanese release. It's region free player.
Yeah, but it doesn't have subtitles.
Oh well, then
if it had English
what
subtitles,
the hell, bro? You should already know Japanese. You've watched an anime, right? One anime.
Yeah, I've watched one anime, so I should know Japanese. Fluent, completely fluent, conversational.
Hey, I sat through Dragon Ball Z finally. I know every word in Japanese.
Of course.
I can even write kanji or whatever.
No, kanji is far more difficult too. That's more complex than hiragana or katakana. I used to know a bit of Japanese.
I never was interested. I took Spanish in high school, then I went to Spain and Germany, and then I took German because my family's German, and German is my favorite language because it's surprisingly easy.
And it also always sounds angry.
Well, English is the Germanic language, so there's a lot of overlap to it.
I just like the building blocks. It's, you don't have 27 words for something. You might just put 27 words together to make one thing. So there's no airplane flying machine. That's a side, folks, for another topic, or that's a topic for another stream. Maybe we don't have a show this Thursday because it's the 4th of July, but maybe when we get one of these weird streams going, we'll read you the German Asterix comic I bought from the Half Price Bookstore. But with Acolyte, what do you guys think next week's going to be? Because we're really leaving.
We're almost at the penultimate episode, right?
Yeah, because let's talk about it like this. Sol knew, I guess, the whole time that it really wasn't May, because she didn't really do anything that tipped him off, did she?
That I could tell. It's like if they were trying to convey that he was playing May this whole time, it was not well executed in the direction.
No, it wasn't well written. If that was the case, I hope that's not the case. Like I'm not really willing to give this show many outs. I really hope that's not the case with that.
I was disappointed that it was so poorly done. And I get it. You're like, Jeff, how would you do it differently? Well, I would have structured the mystery and I would have made it. I don't think I would use murder mystery plots with the Jedi because they're characters that can see through deception instantly. So I wouldn't even put those characters in that setting because it makes no sense.
Unless the Sith perpetrated it, because we know that the Sith can evade the feeling, the emotions, or manipulate around the Jedi, because that's where you get your battle of wits. The thing is that in this time frame, again, if you want to maintain the continuity of the Jedi being oblivious to the Sith, you're having a hard time reconciling that, and that's why the Acolyte's already struggling a lot, especially with your diehard fans.
Bingo.
Have you seen the articles coming out talking about? One from Wired says, "Well, the review bombing isn't real; it's just angry people." But let's get past that. And then there's another one that's trying to say there's data to prove that the Acolyte is super popular. It's weird how they're really going in these directions to keep defending this stuff.
The data is the
Citation
commentary.
needed.
Well, the data is the commentary of how ridiculous this show is and how it's kind of fitting in with the trend of Disney Star Wars, which, again, every single Disney Plus Star Wars show has resonated on social media platforms because of how egregiously horrible it is. Listen, if all you care about is the engagement, then yeah, take whatever win you can. But I don't think that's really best for the brand because, again, we seem to have a generation of people in Disney, at least, that think the brand is indestructible. And it doesn't matter what they put out. People will like it. And you know what the sad truth is that to a small population of an audience, brands are indestructible. You will never, there are some people you will never lose, that they will stick with that brand.
Right. You're consumers.
And that brand stops going out of business.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that they're working on. But I will say this, it's because I've been doing the research on it, and it's like I've been struggling to find any evidence of any of the Star Wars fandom meeting the requirements that mostly the journalists are putting into the mouths of the studio, calling out fans as toxic or bigots or any sort of parallel to it. And it seems to me like it's a clever form of an attempt of manipulation is to saying, okay, we'll have a couple of trades, interview certain players at the studio. They'll say things that, objectively speaking, without the context of the interview around them, should be otherwise fine, which is like, yeah, you know what? We had a couple of trolls make fun of Moses Ingram, but we don't consider them fans because Star Wars fans, we know what Star Wars fans are like. They're not mean like that. They don't do that. That's just stupid. And then the journalist says, we're going to call that toxic fandom. So now you're associating a fandom with a toxic behavior, which doesn't jive. And then they're going to elaborate that, and they're just basically going to phrase it that, yeah, everyone who hates or dislikes or criticizes these shows is part of this toxic fandom. And then a great deal of the fandom will then say, well, they're talking about me because I don't like this thing. They're lumping me with that crowd. And when you kind of cut through the minutia of what the journalists are doing and what the people are saying, it's like, well, they're not literally talking about you. They're talking about something that doesn't exist. And this third party here with the news media is trying to make that thing that doesn't exist feel palatable and trying to make you associate with that thing that doesn't exist to justify them calling us those things when they're not calling us those things. It's basically saying, like, you're yelling, oh my God, there's a ghost over there. I don't see any ghosts. And then and I'm pointing at you, Andrew, and I'm calling you a ghost. And you're like, I'm not a ghost, but I'm calling you a ghost. And then eventually, because I keep saying it over and over again, it's like,
well, then who are you going to call?
I'm not a ghost. I'm not a ghost. And then it's like, all of a sudden you start acknowledging that you're a ghost, but not really a ghost. And then you're in this weird position where you realize, oh my God, maybe I'm feeding the beast to justify from their perspective, to justify them calling me a hater, a troll, and a toxic fan. When in actuality, if you were to probably go to a convention with them and make the criticisms, the valid criticisms that we've all done here to the actor, I doubt they'll ever respond with whatever Amanda Steinberg did with that music video. I'd probably be like, thank you for watching the show. This is what we were trying to accomplish. You know what? I appreciate, what you said, and then move on, because that is kind of par for the course for a lot of talent out there. But the moment you get a journalist involved, especially like that one that said, this is the gayest show ever. And then, of course, Leslie Headland and Amanda laugh out loud, because that is probably the most honest moment you'll get from them. We're like, this guy just said that? What an idiot. Okay, well, we can't call him an idiot to his face because we want to not be rude. Whereas Robert Downey Jr., he called that one journalist that tried to bring up his drug addiction stuff a moron, then walked out, and good on him. But they just kind of rolled with it. And guess what? In them rolling with it, well, they fed right into that journalist's hand, and then all the other ones that are going to write articles about that. And then now it's like, well, it's the gayest show ever. Really? Do you really think a lesbian writer, or let alone a straight writer, would ever try to just say, you know what, I'm ashamed of being gay or straight? Like, no, that's what she said. I'm not ashamed of being gay. I wasn't trying to make it gay, but if you're going to infer from that, okay, fine. I'm not going to correct you because I don't want to burn my audience. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but could you make it good? Like, where's that question to kind of preface this thing here? Because it's just a really fascinating thing. And I will say this, there's probably going to be books written about this period at least in another 20 years when we're able to have a little bit more distance from it. And it will definitely be used by the CIA as a model for additional manipulation, because I think it's kind of funny that we as the audience, we as the fandom in general should never try to let anybody try to label us as anything. And when they do call the bigots and stuff, and they try to say that's directed at us, be like, you're not talking to me, and I know you're not talking to me. And if you try to convince me otherwise, you're foolish. You're full of shit. Because that's the way you stop them, really, at this point. It's basically like saying, oh, they're calling the fans racist. No, they're not, because we're the fans and we're not racist. I don't know who they're calling racist, but it ain't us. You know? And that's how we got that cringe video that came out last week, right?
Oh wait, what? Sorry, I missed the cringe video. Did I not?
It's the "There's More of Us" video, which is, I think, part of that psyop, where they're basically saying, yeah, Star Wars fans aren't. They're trying to say that Star Wars fans, Star Wars is for everyone, and there's more of us than there are the haters. It's like, no, these aren't Star Wars haters. These are passionate people that love the franchise, that help.
Don't like what you're doing with it. Yeah,
and they
I got a poster
just
randomly here. I hate this movie. You know.
Yeah, it's such a stupid freaking straw man argument that these people constantly make. And it, I don't like getting pissed off, but it does piss me off.
Yeah, because I think anytime we get a trade or any sort of person claiming to be representing the show or anything that's saying like, oh, the fans that hate it are racist, be like, who are you talking about? Just force them to point it. Who are you talking about, really? Come on, give me a name. If they're such a bad person and you're not averse to canceling people, come on, give us a name.
Remember when Daisy Ridley was asked about the toxic fans and why she left social media, she just said it wasn't that. It's that people shouldn't grow up on social media. And then Kelly Marie Tran, had a whole different story to tell when she actually spoke. You know, the journalists are always looking for these clicks, and they're creating such a crap environment. I don't trust half of these places. And tomorrow's video will let you know why I don't trust these places, because I did a little investigative work. That's why there was no video today, because I was working on something and it needed to be done the right way. So I had to go down the rabbit hole and piece things together, Pepe Sylvia style. If you know what that means, you're a real fan of It's Always Sunny. But join me tomorrow, because you'll start to question a lot more about the Acolyte reporting. That's your teaser for tomorrow. But
it's a good teaser.
I've got that video mostly done, so that'll be out. I'm gonna have 2 videos for you guys tomorrow. Watch them both so you can celebrate the holiday like I will, drunk. But no, we'll watch that one in the morning, and then I'll have the review of the Acolyte up in the afternoon, because I'm making myself stick through it. You really don't care. I really don't care. It's so
I'm fine to watch it, because there's things to learn from the Acolyte, which is like, oh, we can see once you see all the story beats, you'll be basically able to see like, okay, this is useful, this is not, and this is how you kind of refine your story. Because I had a conversation with Michael Davis, who's director of Shoot 'Em Up and 100 Girls, 100 Women, 8 Days a Week. He's a really fun, eccentric guy, and basically he talks about how you have to kind of figure out what is important and what is not in a story. And the only way you can do that is actually to see an example of a story where there's a bunch of crap in it that you don't need. And guess what? Acolyte is a lot of that. And if you can piece together the actual main story beats and disperse of all the rest and still figure out a way to see how that could be a coherent story, that is a good learning lesson, because that is something that you should be able to take as an example and apply it to yourself if you're going into the writing sphere, which is like, oh, I've got all these cool stories, all this great dialogue, all this fun little stuff here that I think is important. Does it actually move the story forward like the Acolyte? Or does it actually move the story, or is it like the Acolyte? That's how you do your metric. Is this like the Acolyte in any way? And you have to disassociate the Star Wars aspect. You have to associate the bad stuff. You just have to go straight to the core. Does this scene move character forward or plot forward? And if the answer is no, get rid of it and then skip to the next part and keep going, because that's how you get a nice, tight, fun story that people actually remember and retain.
Now, this is a random thing, folks, because we're going to check in with you guys and then we'll get back to the conversation. But before we read the super chats, folks in the chat, if there was a pie-in-the-sky Star Wars show that you could create that would get you to watch again, what would it be? So for those at home, I know it's late, but pick up your phones or go on your computers and let us know. We'll read some of those in a moment. But Shrubbles08, thank you for your patience. We owe you some buttons, my friend. So let's check in with you and give you those buttons right now. So you wanted we'll give you a couple to replace the ludicrous speed that we can no longer play due to copyright reasons. I know, folks. I'm sorry. It's not my fault.
Put a chick in it. Make her gay.
Well, there's one of them, and here's
Fuck
another one.
Indiana Jones. Put a chick in it and make her name it gay. Fuck Baby J. Put a chick in it. Make her gay. Excuse me. I believe I asked you to put a chick in this and make her gay.
Yes, the chef was a little confused what you meant by that.
It means put a chick in the linguine and make her fucking gay.
There you go. Shrivels await. Thank you. If you need something else, here's one more.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, we follow him on Twitter for some reason. What a waste of time. Tim Riggs, thank you very much for your super chat. He says, first graders are more creatively consistent than any writing staff hired for Lucasfilm by Disney. Harsh words, but true words. Freddie Delgado gifted 5 WCBS memberships. Freddie, thank you so much for supporting WCBS. Folks, we had a technical glitch, but I was uploading the Beverly Hills Cop commentary. That'll be up tomorrow for Patreon to watch, and I'll put the audio version up as well for all of our wonderful members. So that's going to be some bonus content. The guys and I got together, recorded a new commentary to celebrate Axel F. Beverly Hills Cop 4, and the reviews are positive. I don't normally trust IGN, and I'm not going to trust them. I got to see it for myself first. But they gave it an 8 out of 10. I was surprised at how high that number was. Script. Have you been reading any of the reviews?
I haven't seen any of the reviews yet for Axel F. I've heard a couple of little plot leaks, but I'm not worried about that. And as I posted on Twitter this morning, a colleague sent me the Sylvester Stallone rewrite of Beverly Hills Cop.
You got okay. We'll put it. Let's look it. I don't want to ever invite myself, but if you ever need some bonus Patreon content, if you ever want to talk about that, I will direct all the people to your channel to hear more about that movie. So
I'm probably going to do a couple of those actually. So yes, we'll get something worked out because
I need to know,
dude. It's kind of crazy because there's I know a lot of people that really love Beverly Hills Cop, and I'm also like, okay, how do I schedule this out so that I can do either a group or a one-on-one, and that's the trick, right? So yeah, I'm gonna do some stuff with that. I'm going to read the script after this week's Script on Saturday show, just so I have a clean palette for it. Because and then I'm going to also watch Cobra, because that's what Sly did after when he kind of dropped out of Beverly Hills Cop, and I want to see what stuck and what didn't. And yeah, gonna check that out. It's gonna be fun. Also excited. I'm gonna have to watch it in the morning. I can't stay up late to watch it when it premieres in 4 hours. So yeah,
even I can't do it.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it because I've watched it. My favorite Beverly Hills is obviously the first one. Second one is pretty good, but it feels like the Lethal Weapon 3 of it. And then Beverly Hills 3 is very short and very TV-like. And
I don't know how John Landis made such a bad movie. I like John Landis work overall.
Well, I mean, the stuff I know about John Landis is that he exploited a lot of better people around him, and when they didn't come back after his Twilight Zone stuff, you got to see what John Landis was actually capable of, and that he's not as talented as he was once believed to be. There's an interview with him, John Carpenter, and another horror director that took place in, I think, 1982.
I've met John Carpenter.
And John Landis was barely able to answer any of the questions about horror or the genre of filmmaking, but all the other guys did.
I need to track that interview down. I don't want to say this to sound weird, but the Twilight Zone fiasco is a topic that I'm always not interested in to like seek out, but like whenever anything comes across my desk, I'm always like, oh, I want to read more about that, because it's such a tragedy and so much, everything that spawned around it. And it's weird too to watch that film knowing exactly what goes down. Yeah. I don't really like the Twilight Zone movie. I love the show, but the movie just doesn't ever land on my a watch it list. Like I can't, and it's nothing to do with the death. It's just I don't like it. It's stupid to me, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, it is stupid. But such are things. Such are things.
Well, I'll tell you this. While I won't be watching Beverly Hills Cop tonight at the crack of dawn or something in the morning, excuse me, I'm really tired. I won't be watching it early. I'm going to listen to the soundtrack as soon as I wake up and make tomorrow's video. So I got tagged on Twitter about the soundtrack getting released, and it kind of tells you the outline of the movie, but I could guess that from the first trailer. So I'm going to have a fun day with it, folks. Check out my little short I did in the not the grocery store, excuse me, the Guitar Center. Oh, here we go. Script Doctor, tell everybody about your new shirt.
Well, it's not that new. This shirt actually came out within 24 hours after the South Park episode. It's called "Put a Chick in It, Make Her Hot." That's what I support. Go get one of those. You need that.
Folks, you can find that at thescriptdoctor.creator/spring.com. That is where you can find this shirt, and looks like more. So
I got a bunch
more
of little
stuff.
things there. Yeah.
I have
Got
to
some
check
prints
this out.
and-
I drink coffee every morning out of a Back to the Future mug, but on those days when it's dirty, I could use a new mug, man. So I might have to get me a.
Appreciate it.
SD
Yeah, I
mug.
got some of the stuff around here as well. I should take photos and post it, but keep forgetting. My girlfriend keeps asking, "What is this stuff?" I don't know.
It's always weird that I have my own stuff. Like, there's a pillow of the High Council on my couch still. Or like when I go out, like if I'm doing an event or something and I'll walk by the mirror, I'm like, oh, I'm on my t-shirt. It's still weird to me. Like, cool, I guess, but it's just weird. It's weird drawing yourself too, like in Stealing Solo. That was an event. Tim Riggs, thank you for your very generous super chat. Tim says, I think as a general rule, we need to force the industry to move away from using the term the fans and use the audience, or even better, customers, because ultimately they are the ones that determine success. I like audience.
Audience is usually what it was beforehand. Fans has always been around, but it's being used far more frequently over the last decade. I think mostly just because they're the ones that had the loudest response to some of the poor choices being made, and justifiably so.
It's been used as kind of a differentiating term, I think, at this point. Those of us who, and this could be, right, wrong, or around the bend, but those of us who are more invested than your average viewer, like you can be a customer and only just go see a movie in theaters, right? You're a customer there, or maybe you'll buy a t-shirt. I don't know. But a fan, I think on average is going to be more invested than just wanting to go see a movie every couple of years for a franchise. I think there's somebody that's more invested in the state of the property, the state of the IP, where the characters are going, what's being done with them, what's being done to them. I think there's an important differentiation to be had there. However, I think what I will agree with Tim is that Hollywood and entertainment in general needs to get back to actually respecting that word customer, because ultimately a fan is still a customer. Not all customers are necessarily fans in the broader sense, but all fans are customers. And you need to respect the people and, I don't know, like try to some degree appease the people who are going to be your most consistent source of income and success. Doesn't mean giving them literally everything they want all the time, because sometimes fans will have different opinions of what they want, and sometimes fans don't actually know what they want until they get it. However, it's still important to keep them invested, at least give them something to continually be invested in and not insulted by, right? Because they are, at the end of the day, your customers. And if they're fans, that means they're long-term customers. Those are your customers that are buying merch, that you're making more money in terms of net margin than you are off of your film.
They're your sustainability aspect of the market. Yeah.
They're your bread and butter,
mm-hmm.
right? That's your core demographic. You don't want to sacrifice them because you're like, oh, well, we could try and get these people over there. Well, you don't know if you're going to be able to get those people over there. So how about instead you do your best to continue to maintain your core demographic, your most reliable source of revenue, while researching ways to expand that demographic in a way that on net grows it, not sacrificing one for a potential other.
I don't disagree. I just
Mm.
I don't know. I don't really like my intelligence to be disrespected like the way they do when they talk about us in such a broad term. I
Oh, yeah.
think there needs to be a campaign of talking about the audience in a positive way on a higher scale, and hopefully then that picks up and more people talk about that, because you get that fake shit at cons, but I want to hear that like in interviews and not the whole like, well, we need to differentiate these people from that people. Just kind of let the whole, and this is to the journalists of the world, just kind of let that stuff go. Stop trying to push that narrative, because all it
Mhm.
does is
Doesn't
it
make
doesn't really
money.
get us to like the thing; it gets us to dislike you as well, and it hurts you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I know, but unfortunately, I mean, bad news travels faster and further and is more lucrative than good news, which is a
I
horrible
know.
aspect of our. And you know what? That's the innate with our species, because we crave conflict so that we can overcome it. And oh boy, yeah, you take a look at in the history of any type of newspaper publication that rewards or lauds a lot of good news throughout the world, and you'll see that their sales decline severely until something controversial occurs, because controversy elicits a different type of different range of emotions that get people more involved and more active than someone reading the newspapers like everything's good, keep doing what you're doing. Okay, great, bye. Fine, nothing to worry about, nothing to change, things are at peace. It's in the same comparison that they alluded to in the first Matrix films. They created a paradise and people just couldn't accept the program, so they off themselves. It's like, yeah, that's kind of how it is. If we don't have conflict and we don't have things to overcome, we're going to create the conflict. And guess what? To a degree, we've kind of seen that happen in real time. We have a whole bunch of fictional conflicts plaguing us right now that are manifesting real conflicts in other areas that are harder and harder to delegate. And there's a kind of an irony to it, where the minority is kind of controlling the narrative against the majority. It's like the inverse of the electoral college, so to speak, which is used to make sure that the majority doesn't oppress the minority. But now we have a minority that's able to oppress the majority. It's quite fascinating.
Technology is the great equalizer.
It is. Yeah.
I used to say education, but it really is just technology, because you don't have to be very smart to use a smartphone. You can you have a lot of power in this little thing right here. A lot of people use it for stupid shit. But that's a topic for another time. Yeah, maybe never actually. I don't think we'll ever make a video about why the phone is whatever. That's not for us, Sorry, Andrew, I'm starting to feel a little like you, just tapped out on talking, man. Whew.
Don't start losing your voice. You got a video to do tomorrow.
I already recorded the audio for the good ones, so all I got to do
okay,
is
there you go.
Because it's like, if I sound like this as I review the Acolyte,
Dude,
people might think it's scary or something. I mean, that might work.
that's basically how I sound right now, only a little more stuffy. Like, and I got freaking Fan Expo Denver on Thursday through Sundays. I got to get my voice back fast.
I'll be honest, man. I have cons and stuff coming up. Like, we're going to Dragon Con, and we'll be at that. We'll be at that show, and then we're gonna be at Horror Hound and Cincinnati Comic Expo. I'm just waiting on that final thing. Like, I got my year picks up in the fall. Like, July is my slow time. So then I got the fucking appearances and this and that, and I'm looking forward to it. But I am taking extra time off this weekend. There's 4th of July. There's a wrestling pay-per-view. There's a pool with my name on it. Beer. It's going to be great. Folks, you might get a couple tweets. I might pre-tweet out stuff, but it's the most American thing you can do is celebrate the 4th of July. So I'm going to enjoy it the way you all should as well. Free from bullshit.
It's FU Redcoat Day. That's what it is.
Yeah, man. The Revolutionary War was always my favorite one to learn about as a little kid. I don't know why. I never liked anything on the Civil War, and now I just like World War II as a whole, like history-wise. But yeah, the Revolutionary War was fascinating to me. I don't know why.
Wait till you
alcohol
start
explosion
researching British Parliament, which led to the Revolutionary War.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you recently were?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. So when the Declaration of Independence came with a bunch of grievances that if they were addressed, there probably wouldn't be a need to go to war to secede.
Mm-hmm.
And Parliament was the first one to see that. And whether or not it made it to the king is up for debate. So the question you have to ask yourself is, well, what was really going on in the House in Parliament in the UK And could they have reconciled those grievances as well? And the reason I say that is because one of my best friends is writing a story that's exploring that very, very topic. And I think it's good research. If you're fascinated about Revolutionary War or any real war, don't just look at where it instigated from, but try and find the players that were involved and what they were doing a good decade or so prior, because you'll start seeing some interesting patterns showing up. It's a great good rabbit hole to get lost into.
I like to do research for stuff I'll never even use. It's like, oh, I studied D-Day like a month ago, and I was like, why am I doing all this research? Man, I'm just fascinated by it. So
I watch River Monsters every night. There's my research. What? River Monsters.
Bro, I found by mistake on
that's my like fix for insomnia, not because it's boring, but because it's just a relaxing thing. And it's been that way since college for me.
I found the Mr. T cartoon on here on this new streaming service, and that's what I watched last night as I tried to fall asleep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then I accidentally talked to somebody who worked on the show, and I was like, "Oh shit, what a weird connection."
What the hell?
Yeah,
that's funny.
You know, folks, and I bring up this stuff not to distract from the topic that you clicked on. It's to remind you we can have fun still. There are tons of things out there to have fun with, and you can join us here on the channel to have fun and make fun of together. We got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. We have a lot of stuff coming tomorrow, and I'm torn, man. Like, part of me wants to do the 2 videos I have planned and then like Axel F at night, but I don't think I should. I think I should just do it its own day a little later. What do you guys think in terms of content?
I would say whatever doesn't potentially burn you out.
Yeah, I think you'll make the right decision on that.
I got my jacket right here. I don't know why I have it. I'm not going to wear it on the stream, but I do have it for some reason.
Nice.
So, folks, check out the little short I made at Guitar Center. I think you'll like it. Guys, I wanted to say one more thing about the Acolyte realistically. The effect of the spaceship docking with that whatever it was looked horrible. Like, that was really bad CGI, and I thought, wait, this is a $181 million show. It kind of looked like is it Farscape, the one that has Ben what's his face on it, and it just would have the really bad CGI. Like, I don't remember, but there's some
either Farscape or Star Hunter. But yes,
one of those. Yeah. To me, it looked like that kind of ship and that kind of effect, like the contrast between what you're used to getting. And
well, the ship design itself looked just off. It did not look like it was something out of Star Wars to me. Like, it looked, I don't know, it looked like a kind of a reskinned American space shuttle in a lot of ways, with the way that they had the wings and everything and the general shape and frame of everything. I was like, this doesn't look like it belongs in Star Wars. Like, obviously Star Wars has a really diverse range of designs for the ships, in just insurmountable differences between one and the other in a lot of cases. However, there's still, I think sci-fi fans can tell the difference between a Star Wars ship, a Star Trek ship, something else that's sci-fi, right? So we know there's something innate, and I can't even quite, as a fan of this stuff, I can't even quite articulate what exactly that is. I just know when I see a ship, there's a high likelihood I'm going to be able to say, oh yeah, that's Star Wars, or that's Star Trek, or that's something that's neither of the first two, right? Whereas that ship in this episode that Soul was piloting, it looked like a reskinned space shuttle. It just looked completely out of place. And to your point, the CGI effect on it was just not good. And to that end, where is this budget going? Like, I know Script mentioned earlier, he thinks that like that we might see that budget kind of like backloaded on the penultimate and finale. But I think that's a misallocation of funds, if that's even what ends up happening. Because here we have a 9 episode is what it's going to be ultimately. 8 episode. Okay, so 8 episode series in season. They cost $180 million. It's twice what Kenobi cost. And to be clear, Kenobi had a lot of bad CGI as well.
Oh yeah.
But
Couldn't even
this-
hide a girl underneath Kenobi's coat.
right, like this cost like at least twice that, if I'm remembering correctly, and I've yet to see evidence of it. I don't see where that money's going. It's not like you brought in, unless Carrie-Ann Moss really claims that much of a rate, and I doubt it, for freaking a minute and a half of screen time. Where'd the money go? Where's the budget? Where's the 180 million? I don't see it. There's nothing about this show, not in the cast, not in the acting, not in the CGI, none of it. Not in the runtime, certainly. Because it's not like the episodes are particularly long either.
No.
Where is that 180 million?
In the pockets of the friends and family of Leslie Headland and co.
Oh.
And like, I don't know if you were being serious or if you were jesting about that, but that's kind of what it feels like. This feels like money laundering.
Well, I mean, either, you could call it
was.
money laundering, or you could call it they just negotiated some really great contracts.
Right, but then didn't actually invest it into the thing that they were negotiating for.
Well, I mean, you don't. Hey, if Leslie Headland says, "Hey, I want $50 million to write this show," it's like there's 130 left for each episode, for the total rest of the episodes. And again, I don't think she got that, but it all comes down to, like, yes, where you need some forensic accounting to find out where that money went, whether or not that money was actually really spent.
Mm-hmm.
Like there, I mean, we might be seeing just a very, very sophisticated Golden Globus operation happening here at Disney. You just never know, because I do know that the pre-sale numbers that they've been getting on international territories for their feature films is like the most expensive I've ever seen, which means they're making a lot of money before they even start rolling film. And I don't think they'll be able to do that. Well, with Inside Out performing pretty well, they might be able to still continue that for another year at the film markets. But I think it's wavering a bit, because again, the returns on the rest of the Disney slate hasn't been consistent for the last 5 years.
It's been, at least on paper, from the numbers that we can see, right? Maybe there's some stuff,
there's a lot
that
left
we can't
be found, but yes, currently,
right.
Yeah.
But at least from the numbers that we get access to, it looks like the vast majority, the lion's share of the stuff that they put out is a net loss, and not even a small one, like a large one. So at what point do you realize you can't function like this in perpetuity? You gotta rein in your budgets. What's with the overspending? Unless it's really this, and I'm a business major. I can't conceptualize, like, getting all of this money and doing nothing with it in terms of the thing that you were negotiating the money for, because that just makes your product look less desirable, which means you're going to make less money off of the product. So, okay, sure, these individuals over here got some nice money that they got to pocket, but the company and the franchise on net lost money.
True, but the company and the franchise also have third-party investors, and that means that you don't have to pay them back if you lose money.
Right, but at what point do those investors realize and get their heads screwed on properly? Like, hey, what are we actually investing in right now? Like, we're not actually getting anything back.
Well, I mean, that would be for your normal investor, which
an investor that wants to make money back on net.
Oh, there are a lot of investors that have so much money they don't even know if they're losing it or not, and they don't care. And guess what? They are invested in Disney.
That sounds like a great problem to have, I guess.
To say, I want to have that problem.
I would love to have that problem.
I wish I had not just FU money. I wish I had don't care money.
Yeah, because listen, I've met some people that have met those people. I'm like, hi, can you give me their number? I have something I want to sell them. And they're just like, they don't have terrestrial phone numbers, so to speak. Like, the way that you meet these people is not through conventional means. And it's like, oh, well, that's horrifying to learn, because if they're that rich and they're that powerful, it's like, you can't just call them up, shoot them an email, find them at a party. It's like, nope, they come out when they want to come out. And you're like, so this is where the lizard people rumor comes from.
Lizard people. There it is.
I mean, it is 2024. Anything's possible, folks. Robots, lizards, aliens, clowns, snakes. I don't know. Fuck it. Tim Riggs, thank you very much. A lot of this garbage is taxpayer subsidized, also, which doesn't show up directly in those numbers either.
Yes, one of the benefits of the tax credits is that you can technically double dip your money. You can spend the same $30 million twice with a tax credit, and you only really have to report 30 million. Now, what's interesting is that Disney is kind of reporting the tax credits that they're spending as well, which is weird because you don't really have to do that. So, yeah, that 180 million, if they say they got 30 million for it, they should technically only really be reporting that they spent 150 because, again, that 30 million was a tax credit. It's nothing that they actually spent or used to addition to the budget. It's just a good way to sort of stretch your dollar, so to speak, wherever you're going. And when it comes to studios like Disney, which has banks and trust, which has bank contracts and trusts internationally, they don't actually have to pay exchange rates for the stuff. They just use those companies to locally borrow or get lines of credit and apply for tax credits there. And then that goes into that account. And then the accounting moves whatever money they have to from one bank to another, wherever they go. Usually it's like a Cayman Islands account or something of that nature, or multiple accounts where it all goes in at the end of the day. And then a lot of that goes off into other investments, which have also different returns, which then basically covers other stuff. I mean, one of the things that was kind of fascinating I learned when I was working for, funnily enough, Blockbuster Video, is that their entire payroll department, at least where I was in the Canada region, was not funded by customers buying stuff. So if we didn't have any customers, we could still get paid because the payroll was actually part of a dividend from Blockbuster Video's investments in the market. And that's how they were able to maximize their profits, because everything that they sold, everything that they rented at their stores didn't actually go to pay for the employees. It just meant to pay for the expenses of everything else. And that's why they had this very particular hours design, which was very, very strict. And you couldn't fudge on it. It's like, well, if you can't fudge on it, it means that you actually know exactly how much money you're going to be making every 2-week pay period per region, per store, not just on a budget sense, but like to the dime. And then you find out, oh yeah, this is how they do it. All the money that they have in there, any of the profits they do, they'll put back into the investment, which eventually goes to, payroll and whatnot as a result. But it also goes over to the fact that they are buying the movies that they rent at a slightly discounted rate, pretty close to full market value. It takes about 28 days for them to make their money back on the rentals on average. And then from there, once that's done, it's like, now we got to sell off the overstock, and then we either return stuff for credit, and it's all balancing out. And the only thing they have to cover is basically rent, operation costs, and purchasing of new products and confection. I'm like, that's an interesting model because you kind of stabilize your employment. But at the same time, if you get into an emergency where you need more staff, how do you budget for that? And they're like, well, we got to shift and mix and match and take money from one store and move it to the other. And it's like, oh, that's why Blockbuster was always struggling with stuff, because they didn't dedicate the fact that it wasn't one pool of money to pay for everything. It was like one pool of money to help, and a portion that feeds one area and the rest of it pays for everything. And you're like, oh, that is crazy. No wonder you guys made so many bad decisions at the turn of the century.
No Netflix, no Blockbuster.
And Blockbuster almost bought Netflix.
I know, that was so dumb on their part, man. The nostalgia for the video stores comes back, but I mean, videotape was such a terrible, terrible format. Like, I will die on that hill. For everybody out there that's like, oh, I'm nostalgic for VHS tapes. Come on, guys. We were all happy with DVD when it came out. And then everybody started to parse, well, is Blu-ray better? Is 4K better? I get it. They're smaller upgrades, but society was on board with DVD the entire time.
It's because VHS was just a tremendous pain in the ass. And eventually you burn the thing out. Like, discs are not forever. However, you are far less likely to burn it out within the span of a couple of years than you are with the VHS. I burnt out multiple VHS tapes because I watched them so freaking often, and having to constantly rewind them, pop it back in, like, that's taxing on the stuff that makes up the VHS, all the different parts, the moving parts, and the tape itself. Like, the same thing.
Well, the magnetic tape is actually usually pretty good. What ends up burning it up is the heat from the rewinding process. That's why they had to do separate rewinders, and it wasn't until the late 90s where the rewind speed actually slowed down so you wouldn't be burning out your tapes, because the magnetic tape actually lasts for a very, very long time without any issues. It's the machines themselves that really just did a run for stuff. Like I've got a RCA VCR from 1972, which you can probably see a whole bunch of them. It's the silver one that Red Letter Media keeps breaking all the time. I got one of those.
Nice.
The top loaded one. So it pops up from the top, you put it in, and you have the remotes on a wire. It still works to this day. Excellently. But good luck trying to find someone that can repair it today. Like and they don't make the parts to repair that either. Like that's the other part too. Is like, even if you do know how to fix it, good luck finding a part to replace it with, because they're not manufactured anymore. There's no need for it. DVDs, the only issue you had is that if that disc was scratched, it's done. With a VHS tape, if it breaks or something, you could actually like fix it back together and barely have an issue with it on future watches. But you don't ever want to have a cut tape on your player, especially if your VHS machine VCR ate the tape. That's even worse.
I was always very careful with my DVDs. I never had an issue.
I was fine. All my DVDs still work, except this movie I bought called like Half Nelson. Actually, somebody gave it to me as a gift because it was a wrestling hold and I thought I'd like it. I didn't. But I remember just when you would get to your favorite part of a movie, it would sometimes warp. So, like, if you watched my old copy of Star Wars, when they're flying around the Death Star, I'd be like, dude, and then it would come right back to looking good again. Or you had auto tracking. Ugh. In 2003, I bought a VCR DVD combo. I thought it was awesome. It was a Sony, and we got a Trinitron TV to go with it. I thought it was the coolest setup in the world, and I used it for many years, but I stopped watching videotapes right around that time. I would use it to tape stuff off TV. That was the best part about a VHS player, or VCR as we called them. You just tape shit off TV and have it for later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful a lot of people did that, because they've converted them all to digital, and you can watch classic cartoons and commercials on YouTube.
I love classic commercials, dude. Dion and I have sat around watching hour-long, the commercials of 1997, and we're just sitting there like eating, a bowl of cereal, watching a cereal commercial from 25 years ago. So I love that shit. See, that is where the internet makes society better. It's like, hey, remember that commercial from when you were a kid? Yeah, you want to watch it? Yeah, I actually do. And then you're taken back.
Absolutely. I mean, the internet is the greatest archive we have. The only thing that sucks is that it's 100% digital, which means one significant disaster wipes all that out right away. Even with their supposed underground digital archive bunker, I don't know. No, the meteor hits there. It doesn't matter how deep it is; it's still going.
That'd be an interesting movie to watch. A world where the internet goes out, and then you just have to watch humanity cope with that.
It's funny. Paul Chato has a screenplay he's working on with that very premise.
Nice. Well, I hope it gets turned into a movie.
I'm trying to. He has another writing partner. I'm keep on trying to come on, finish the script, get it out there. I know some people.
Oh man. Since this, Michael's on the screen talking about, this 2.5 hour long cut of Batman. Have either of you seen the international cut of Superman, the one that's like super long?
I've got it, and I also have a fan cut of Superman where they clean up some of the special effects and they get in everything, but they screwed up one part, and they get rid of oh God, what's his name? I'll just use it. They get rid of Pa Kent's face and Jor-El's face in the clouds when Superman's right before Superman starts flying around the earth.
Oh, okay.
They didn't pick up what that was. They just smoothed it over, and you're like, no, that's everything else is perfect. Everything else is perfect in it. The color timing is amazing.
That's a big miss. How do you miss that?
The recompositing, it's a 3 hour and change cut of Superman the movie, and you can only get it through torrents. But I mean, it's everything. But yeah, they missed that one part. It's like, oh, dude, you almost had it. Like 99.999% there.
I have a weird, quick ethical question. How would you feel about movies going back and recompositing old opticals and not really announcing it? They just, they clean it up, they redo it to where it matches, and then they just don't talk about it. Do you think that's something that needs to be mentioned, or is it just part of the restoration process?
I prefer it to be mentioned because, well, number one, it's good for marketing. Number two, you can sell double your product because you can sell the original and the upgrade at the same time. Heck, that's what George Lucas did after
The special
After he
edition.
released the special editions in,
Yeah.
in I think it was 2007 or 2008, because I actually have it. I've got the original trilogy as their theatrical cuts, the original theatrical cuts on DVD, alongside their special edition cuts as a box set, an official. So you put in the DVD, it says Star Wars. It doesn't say Episode 4, New Hope, or anything. Quality is great for DVD. But yeah, like it's just those things sold really, really well. And those things do. If someone were to be like, yeah, we took The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and we fixed up all the digital composites, that special effects thing. We matched everything else. We smoothed out the stop motion where it's exactly what the guy needed it to be photographed wise. We didn't CGI anything or change it. We just made sure that we got a little bit of that jankiness cleaned up. I think that's fine. I still prefer the original, but I would like the newer stuff just to see how they made it fair, especially if there's like that one shot. Every movie, not every movie, but there's always some great classic films where they have that one shot where it looks like they shot on maybe a different stock of film and they tried to like tweak it so that it matches just because they were running low on funds or someone screwed up with the loading of the camera. And you're like, yeah, today you can kind of better match that. Not even just digitally, just with the current scanning technology you have, you can better match that in the post-processing section. So yeah, I listen, I'm all for that. I will say this, with the stuff that James Cameron's been doing with his features has been stupid.
What's he been doing? Sorry, I'm
AI
not a
smoothing.
big fan of his.
He's been doing AI smoothing. So True Lies, which has his first Blu-ray, it's blurry.
That's why
With
they look like shit. Okay, I knew that his home releases looked bad, but I didn't realize it was AI that did it.
Yeah, he used AI for consistency because he got rid of the grain, but then he also tried to smooth it out so that you don't lose the resolution from getting rid of the grain. And it just doesn't work. It really doesn't. And it literally changes shots. Like the shots are the same, but like it alters the movement of the actors inside ever so slightly that, yeah, it just looks uncanny valley-ish at times. And it's really freaking weird.
I won't buy Terminator 2 on 4K because I know that it's like waxy and ugly. I love Terminator 2. Like that's one of those movies I could watch every month and never be tired of it. It's just awesome. But I refuse to buy it because Cameron's gotta stop that shit. Home video is important. You know, guys, don't just act like, oh, my movie made all this money back in the day. Put it out. And we like it as is, seams and all, special effects, gaffs and all. I am convinced, though, that they cleaned up Back to the Future's flames shot when it's in the parking lot. Like, that doesn't look as janky as it used to. There's no report of it, but just when I watch it now, I'm like, that looks way better. So
yeah, I think they cleaned that up, and I think they also cleaned up the handing of the almanac from Old Biff to Young Biff properly, because they filmed it correctly, but in the edit they didn't line it up properly. So, and that's in Back to the Future 2.
Yep. That is a solid sequel that I don't see a lot of people like. It's not as good as the original, but it's a good movie. I really don't have a lot of issues with Back to the Future 2.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still looking for more deleted scenes from for the first Back to the Future, because we haven't got all of them. There's supposedly a Back to the Future scene where it's without dialogue, but it's Marty with his tape and he's addressing it to the radio station, and then that happens right before he walks into the living room and sees his brother and sister and dressed all nice in the nice house.
Oh, that's what he's got in his hand.
Yeah, that's what he's got in his hand. He's sending it off to the radio station to get put on the radio, which is what you did back in the 80s before you were just plucked out of nowhere and put on YouTube, and then someone else writes all your music and steals your soul that way. Yeah, there's those little bits there. I mean, Back to the Future is like one of the most perfectly written films ever, because they spent 7 years writing it and they got tons of notes. Bob Gale, Bob Zemeckis were a powerhouse. The fact that they haven't worked together really much since is a little bit disappointing, but I think they're doing that for their sanity. But I am excited for Zemeckis' latest film with Tom Hanks and Robin Penn Wright, whatever her name is. It looks like he's going back to his roots a little bit, heartstring films as opposed to trying to be special effects driven and experimental, or overly experimental would be a better approach.
I love Back to the Future. Roger Rabbit's cool. Used Cars is cool. I don't remember Romancing the Stone enough to have a strong opinion, and I don't remember the last time I sat through Forrest Gump. Like, I'm not the biggest Zemeckis acolyte. There we go. I tied it into tonight's show.
Oh gosh, he said the word.
All right. And look, there was a tag team called the Acolytes, and they were awesome. They would go around whooping people's asses left and right. Farouk and Bradshaw. So remember, folks, the word acolyte isn't a bad word. Just the Acolyte is a bad show. Tim Riggs, thank you very much for your super chat. He says, have the original trilogy theatrical pre-special edition rips on Laserdisc releases, best Star Wars version out there, period. There is a fan restoration of it in 4K. So if you want the original theatrical cut, but the one thing I always harp on that people don't realize, you guys don't have the original cut of Star Wars because there's not one original cut of Star Wars. There's two versions. There's the 35 millimeter and the 70 millimeter, and they have different audio. So the stuff that you know in your home video release that you hate from the special edition, like close the blast door and the C-3PO dialogue, is from that. They even added it in home video later on or took it out or something like that. But my point is, that's the one part with the Star Wars fandom where I kind of like, guys, you don't have the original cut. Like, you don't want the CGI. You don't want the Jabba the Hutt. I don't want that either. But, what you're saying is you just want the home video version you watched in the 80s, not the actual original version. And I don't think Star Wars fans care. That's fine. But I would like the 70 millimeter version preserved in 4K because all those lines of dialogue make more sense. C-3PO, when he talks about the Death Star is connected by this, blah, 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 you kind of need that. When you just watch a bunch of flashing images and cuts to Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi,
it's missing something. But the other part too is in the original cut, they didn't mix C-3PO's voice properly to that shot, which is why it sounds so out of place on the special editions.
Okay.
Because it sounds like it's looped in as opposed to, this is actually him kind of in the scene talking, which I think they fixed for the 4K versions. There's also a fan out there named Adiwan, I think his name is, who has basically recut the original trilogy to be in like the continuity is the same, but like the scene order is where it was originally supposed to be, closer to the initial cut that before Marshall Lucas and Richard True and I'm forgetting the third guy's name kind of took
Paul Hirsch,
thank you, took their put their fingertips on it to get it all refined. It's some really fascinating stuff. I mean, it doesn't make Star Wars, it makes the original Star Wars as we see it better, but we see how much they had to work with in this one, and he's done a great job. Even like for the Return of the Jedi cut, he fabricated another Han Solo and carbonite prop, like life size, and shot it and composited it in properly so that it fits the scene that was supposed to be in that film. And he's been working on this stuff for like over a decade.
The only one of his that I've seen that kind of turned me off was when he did his reimagined version of the Battle of Yavin, and he had to pause it and throw in the Imperial March and all this crap.
I saw that part.
I get it that people like the Imperial March, but there's a Star Wars movie where it doesn't exist, and you just got to get over it. Like, it's not part of the first movie. The Empire has different music. Okay. But that makes the Imperial March bitching when it flies, when the Executor flies in and Darth Vader standing there. That's what we got to wait for, folks. We always got to take into context when these things were created. I get it that it's awesome that this thing's part of this one. It just didn't exist for the first one. We got to move on. But Tim, thank you very much. Now I just want to watch the original Star Wars. I do like one or two shots from the special edition, but other than that, the original is where it's at.
There's a couple of Millennium Falcon shots in the special edition that don't ruin the movie.
The last one of the movie where, you're all clear, kid, not blow this thing and go home. The original shot looks horrible. It's just the ship kind of going up like this into the side. But in the new one, it's, and it goes off. And I'm like, cool. Maybe that's what I grew up with. But the one shot of it where it comes directly into the camera is awesome. And that's an original shot.
Yep.
it deserves all the praise and the awards and shit. And clearly, we keep talking about this fucking movie like it's going out of style, or it's not going out of style, because it's not. It is sad where it is these days, but let's have fun with it in a way we can. Overkill 161 says the power of one, the power of two, the power of Cervezas Crystal. Happy 4th, WCBSers, and don't subtract or add to your digits. What do you mean, like your your
Don't
fingers?
blow off your fingers. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do the fireworks. I watch them. I hang out. I'm usually in the back. When I was younger, I had my, hey, let's throw a bottle rocket off of the roof, or let's get into Roman candle. I didn't get into Roman candle fights, but one year there was an actual mistake. We were just testing out something before the night of the 4th, and one of the fireworks flew into a box of fireworks, and they had these things called predators. And it was like a scene out of a movie. We dove. We were in my backyard, which had a cement parking structure, and we jumped in front of the cars, and everything just blew up around us. And it's just like, I swear it was like a shockwave, like whoosh,
like an 80s action movie.
Yeah. Never fucked around with fireworks again. I'm like, that was enough. I'm done. And I don't think I've ever bought or lit them again. I was 16. I was like, nope, I like my body. I don't want to die.
I used to do the lighting up bottle rockets with a Roman candle. So you get a row of bottle rockets, all lined up, and then you get the Roman candle and you just shoot it so that basically the ball just passes through the wicks of all of the bottle rockets all at once before it fizzles out, and then all of a sudden the bottle rockets just shoot off into the sky, which is actually not something you're allowed to do because technically bottle rockets are illegal in Canada. So, or at least at the time when we were doing that, they were. Roman candles were great because we had tons of Roman candle fights. You'd just be covered in burn marks on your shirts or arms. And,
oh yeah, that sounds like fun.
It was. I mean, they're hot, but they didn't burn. They didn't burn us. So.
Yeah, I actually misspoke. I did pull a prank on somebody. He was loading up his mortar shells, and I put it in upside down intentionally.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, he's fine. Nobody got hurt ever. The thing is, we were lighting him at a distance. Like, that was the thing. He had the long wick and all that shit, and I just put it in. I was like, I wonder how this is going to or what happens, because I thought it was just going to, blow up in the tube. But no, it blew through the bottom of the tube, and then we got that, that big sparkly fireworks that you see up in the sky, folks. Imagine that being blown across somebody's backyard. It was pretty cool. Jack White, thank you very much. Just dropped in to let you guys know that Demon Slayer is in its final arc, and it's being adapted into a movie trilogy and new series recommendations. Mission Yakuzura Family. Well, Jack, I'm taking that screenshot. Jack, I got a recommendation for you. Watch Angel Cop. That shit was insane. By the way, somebody out there in the chat keeps talking about the Ghost Stories dub. It's funny. My buddy sent me that video this week too, and I'm going to watch that. So be on the lookout, folks. I promise you we'll get some more anime content. And Jack, I still got everything you ever told me to take a screenshot of. So thank you. He also says, did you guys see the trailer for that new Hellboy movie, that Crooked Man? If so, thoughts? I saw a picture of it and I thought it was a fake trailer. I didn't realize that was real.
Yeah, I saw stuff on Twitter about it, but I haven't watched the trailer because the last Hellboy movie was so bad. I was just like, no, I'm good.
And then David Harbour's like, why don't you guys like it? It's just angry fans. I'm like, bro, Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman were doing something awesome, and I was on board.
Those movies are fantastic, and that I'll still rewatch those, even though freaking Ron Perlman is insufferable. But those movies are great.
Dude, the first one is the one I stand by. Golden Army, it's a little too indulgent. Like, what is it? Post Pan's Labyrinth. So we're talking a little more of or close to it. Excuse me. I thought the first story was really cool. Now, I like Mike Mignola's art quite a bit. I have a Batman black and white statue that looks flat like his drawing. It's really insane what they can do with the paint these days. But Jack, we'll probably review Hellboy when it hits like streaming or something in the future. But guys, it is late. It's midnight, and it's almost the 2-hour mark. So I think it's time to go. Folks, unless there's anything else you'd like us to talk about, let us know. Andrew, where can we find you on the internet, sir?
Find me, type in ND Andrew over on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it. Call it Twix for all I care. Find me over there. I'm the creative manager and lead editor over the Rippaverse. If you are in Denver, Colorado, the Ripaverse team, as well as some of our creatives, will be, and some of our friends as well, will be over at Fan Expo Denver this Thursday through Sunday. So come check us out over there. We're going to have some exclusive merch. We're going to have some books. We might even have some books that you haven't been able to see or buy in a little while. Never know. So come check us out over there. Say hi. It'd be great. We love meeting the fans. Meeting the fans is some of the best parts about doing what we do. We appreciate you guys so much in the indie sphere. And Jeff knows all about this because he's an indie creator himself. We can't do what we do without you guys. We don't have the backers of mega corporations and investors and things like this. We live and die by y'all. So to that end, go check out the newly relaunched ripaverse.com. Pre-order Mike Barron and Will Conrad's Gooding the Polymath. Phenomenal book, really tight script, great art. And while you're doing so, also go back Wokebusters over on Kickstarter and order yourself a copy of Stealing Solo too.
Yeah, before they're gone. That's not a sales tactic. I'll send out a picture of the remaining 6 boxes and be like, hey guys, this is all there will ever be. Well, let's be honest. Things are going good. So look, I want you to back Wokebusters. We're going to make it cross the goal. But overall, I'm happy to be me because you really want that book. So thank you. Before I talk about Wokebusters anymore, the Script Doctor, where can we find you on the internet, my friend?
You can find me on Twitter X at ScriptDoctorPhD. You can check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/thescriptdoctor, where I have some fun interviews and an awesome show on Saturdays called Scripts on Saturdays, which will be going live this Saturday, talking about a really interesting screenplay about colors. So yes, come check us out over there. You also have a Patreon where I've got some really interesting screen coverage, some writing advice, as well as other interviews, some exclusive to the Patreon. And pretty soon, next week, I'll be doing a text review of Sly Stallone's rewrite of Beverly Hills Cop. And I'll probably have a video or two discussing that rewrite with some guests, one of which may be Jeff, if that works out well.
Oh, man. Look, even if I'm not there, I'm watching your video. That facial expression was, I'm going to watch that while I draw. Like,
Heck yeah.
I can't look at, like, who else can just reach off camera and pull out the soundtrack, the CDI, and the Betamax of Beverly Hills Cop? Like, I'm pumped.
The Betamax. I don't think anybody else can do all of those things at once.
I got the other Betamax. This is the Paramount Select release with the gold foil and all that. There's the regular release up there, too. Like, I got to have them all. Like
that's called a mega fan, man.
I'll tell you the truth. I committed to it because I thought I would like to collect something and have everything of it. And I thought, Star Wars that's just out of the question. Like,
there's too much. There's way too much to attempt to do that unless you're a multi-billionaire. James
Bond has more than you think too, because like I can't find an unopened bottle of 1960s James Bond cologne. But I thought to myself, Beverly Hills Cop has not very many things to collect. I was like, outside of the home video releases and the music, I'm collecting like shit from Paramount itself. Like I got crates that say property of Paramount Studios with Beverly Hills Cop stuff in it. Like, yeah, that's like why I collect it, because I thought, well, I can get it all one day. So my next goal is a film reel. I have every format that exists outside of a 35 millimeter film reel. So folks, if you got the hookup on that, let me know. I'll pay top dollar. But really, folks, all joking aside, thank you for joining us tonight. Yes, like Andrew says, we are independent creators. We rely on you guys, and thank you. Wokebusters is moving. It's been a little slow. Believe me, I know I'm paying attention to it, but we're gonna make it cross that goal, and we're gonna bring that book to everybody. I'll be able to take it to cons and do that stuff. And one of the things I'm working on is how to create this business and not rely on that as much, and use other avenues to grow it as well. So help us cross this goal. This will probably be the last time we'll do a crowdfunder, hopefully, and be able to do bigger stuff in the future with the comics. I've been working on stuff behind the scenes, and can't really tell you about it yet. But when I do, you always know when something cool and new comes to the channel. So, folks, I'm going to get out of here. It's late. We're all tired, and it's been a great time. Now, let's read the email first, and then we will go, because I don't want to forget. This one comes from Clone Geek, who says, my ideal Star Wars show at this point in my life would be something akin to the works of Robert E. Howard. I think more sword and sorcery take on the franchise would work quite well. I would set it in the wake of an apparent destruction of the Sith. Basically have it be Conan going across the galaxy and encountering monstrosities that the Sith created over millennia, or the various dark forces that exist in the galaxy outside of the Sith. The Star Wars galaxy is built on the idea that it's a universe that is well lived in. Howard's work often features his heroes encountering leftovers from bygone ages. Pictures some lone figure encountering a Rakatan mind trap, host to the mind of a long-lost warlord, get taken over by it. Warlord trying to revive a long-dead empire. I think you get a damn good show out of this. Your loyal viewer, Clone Geek. Yeah, almost perfect. Clone Geek, thank you for being such a loyal viewer. I was seeing that in my head. Like, when you were saying Conan, I was thinking, even though this isn't Robert E. Howard, but there was a cartoon out a couple years ago from Genndy Tartakovsky. It's like a guy in a T-Rex. It's like a caveman in a T-Rex. And it was just like a very stark and graphic looking thing. I was kind of seeing that style of storytelling with your Star Wars world. So I'd buy into it. I just want something cool and epic. That's what I want. Don't high concept it. Don't high republic it. Hell, don't even high council, as they call it on the show. By the way, did you see all the times they kept saying, I'm going to call the high council? I was like wanting to pick up my phone and be like, I'm right here, bro. I am not coming to help.
They're watching.
Who dis?
Hey, thanks for the nod, Lucasfilm, for all these years of us taking a dump on you and, making bank from stealing Solo. You're still giving us a rub. I don't know what you expect. We're not that kind of channel. You got to buy us dinner first. But anything else you guys want to say about Clone Geek's idea? Would you watch that?
Yeah, I'd give it a shot. Could be fun.
I'd take it over anything that Disney Plus has put out so far. That's for sure.
So, folks, help us build an entertainment empire so we can say, hey, Clone Geek, let's make that happen. Yeah, I'm going to buy Star Wars, and I'm just going to willy-nilly give out. Actually, that'd be awesome, dude. You win, like, the world's biggest lottery. You have enough money to buy Star Wars, and you're like, I'm going to do this for fun. That's probably something I would do. I could have invested it in becoming the richest person in history, or I could have a lot of fun for 5 years. Well,
there you go.
I want to live in the present. So, folks, thank you for watching. Hopefully you had a good time. We'll see you after the 4th of July. The WCBS channel will be live again next Tuesday, so join us next week on the 10th, and I'm going to be bringing back, yes, finally, Good Morning Pop Culture to get Woke Busters past its goal. If I have to stream 12 hours a day to get this book past that goal, look, Tits and Art did it. Woke Busters will do it because it's better. Yes, I even said about my own work. I'm a terrible parent. I have favorites. So, folks, join us as we make that happen. I am not going to sleep I'm not going to stop until I do. Sleep is happening right now. So from all of us here, thank you for watching. Be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.
Garbage Day!